Hi everyone. So it's been over 7 months since I made a video about my own journey, my own sort of career. And, when I last made that video, I think it was in sort of middle of August time, end of August time. That was when I was 2 weeks into my phase two. I am now currently, at the time of recording, roughly around 5 to 6 weeks out from graduating. So a big chunk's been done. 7 solid months has been done. It's gone very, very quick. Sometimes a little bit slower than others, but mostly overall it's been quite quick. And, a lot has changed, and hopefully I can discuss that in this video, and we'll talk about postings more towards the end and sort of what I'm feeling like and what I'm hoping for. Phase two was definitely quite a refreshing breather for me, so to speak. You come from Horton, you're in that sort of mindset, you're in that sort of constant stress, constant, late nights, get out stuff. Obviously, it retains that, but very, very little amount of it. And people obviously learn that they come from, they're quite not sure what to do, because obviously phase two is a bit more relaxed. There's not much like, okay, everything's structured like this. Obviously, like timetable stuff is, but you just have to sort of make sure you're there at that time. They don't really care how you get there. Obviously, I'm not saying run there or sort of hop, skip and jump. Obviously, you have to march there still and do all the other bits, which is just, a part of it. But the one thing for me was actually sort of like, was being able to leave in the evenings. That was a big one. I think the main thing about phase two is the freedom side in comparison to phase one. As soon as you're off work, usually from 4 or 5 o'clock, I say usually four, mainly between 4:30, 5ish. That's when you go off, and then obviously after that, time's your own until tomorrow morning. So you could go to Sainsbury's, go and grab a McDonald's if you wanted to, or whatever your thing is, go for a drink. And, I just love that aspect. There's a couple of evenings, not many evenings throughout 7 months, where the guys were like, we're going ZZ's or whatnot. So we went there for the evening, and, we play football. I think it's usually on a Thursday, but that's obviously on the base. But, the fact is that you can do different things, and there's a bit more freedom. And the biggest one to that is obviously going home on a Friday. And, you can go home on a Friday. I've had a couple of people ask questions about this. You can go home on a Friday, as long as you're back by 23:59 on a Sunday. They don't care. So you can go home for the weekend if you want, do whatever you want. Under 18s is a bit different when you leave base. You have to sign out and stuff. And I think to go home, you have to fill out or let someone know. I don't know how it works, because, they have a duty of care over everyone, regardless of what your age is. But obviously, being under age 18, your class is still a child. Or I don't know if that's the right word to use, but I think that's how they see it. So you're not an adult just yet. So they take extra care and steps in regards to that, to, I wouldn't say cover themselves, but it's part of the rules, it's part of the things they have to do. So that's probably the biggest part that I love about phase two by far. The other things is like the facilities. Obviously, I usually go gym at lunch because I go home. I've got my house now, which I'll touch on in a little bit more in a minute. But if you're still on base, I was still going gym in the evenings. Sometimes, we go and play football on the Thursdays. Right in the beginning, we weren't doing that, but we played a little bit of football, really, really early on. More recently, we started doing football on Thursday evenings on the sort of Astro pitch that they have there, and just have a sort of a kick around. So, the point is that there's so much to do, and there's so much more freedom. You've got a coffee shop there. You've got Greg's and other bits like that you can go to. Obviously, they close at certain times. I think once in the evenings they're closed, but throughout the day, lunchtime or whatnot, you can go there. And they've got mess and other things like that. But the thing is, for me, before moving into the house, was the block. Now, obviously, you guys got to keep in mind, these ain't 5-star hotels. These ain't, they're better than Horton, I would say. Funny enough, I would actually say that the mattress at Horton I preferred personally than these ones at the block, because the springs just dug into my back. But, once you spend a couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks getting through it, sometimes a bit longer, it depends on what sort of trade you're in. But for me, it's like 2 to 3 weeks into phase two. You have an inspection every Tuesday that has to be laid out a certain way. They show you how to lay it out. It's not too complicated. But all they want to look at is your military locker. They won't look at any of your civilian stuff. And obviously look at your bed space for dust and stuff, similar to Horton. But again, you're not looking at your civvy unless... What they say is, unless you give them a reason to, if they can smell alcohol or dirty food, then they'll go and look. But if they can't, you'll just have your military locker open, the other thing's just all shut, and they're just looking at, yeah, blah, 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 and they'll just give you a little bit of sort of, what would you call it, feedback and what they expect. The only thing is I'll definitely recommend is that for people maybe going into phase two, I found for us, it's not about personal now, it's more about team efforts. So they care way more about block jobs and other things like that. So obviously make sure your block jobs, especially the kitchen, is spick and span and very, very anal on that. So just make sure you guys are on top of it. But still doesn't mean that you can just, sort of fob off your bed space and stuff. They still care about that. I just found they go way more in depth in the block jobs than they do your own kit, unless you give them a reason to, of course. But obviously that depends on whose inspection you is. Everyone's individual, everyone's different, sorry. So, you know, I just like the idea that, you know, we have a bath in some places, which is great. I never had a bath. I have a bath in my house, but, you know, there's baths there. So there's all different things. You have a kitchen and stuff like that. And, you know, obviously there's 4-man rooms instead of 12 to 16. And like I say, after like 3 weeks or so of being there, you get a green disc. Basically, when you get there, after 3 weeks, you prove as a course that you can keep the block tidy, clean, you know, label anything or food, you know, out of date food, throw away, keep in date, you know, just other bits like keeping on top of stuff in your own kit and your room and stuff. Then they'll trust you. You'll get the green discs out. Then you can put your own bedding in. You can put sort of mattress toppers, get your own duvets, your own pillows. You could put your, you know, gaming setup if you're into, you know, if you've got computers and whatnot, consoles, TVs, you know, the whole 9 yards. Some people have figures like Warhammer stuff and all the other bits and bobs. So, you know, you can customize it. And I think that's what boosts a lot of people around. It's like a little, you know, the little slice of heaven, I guess you could say, is a little slice of home in their own bed space. I definitely recommend you guys do that as well. So in comparison to obviously Horton, I preferred it way more personally. But obviously I was only there for about 2 months or so, or almost 2 months, about a month and 3 weeks, when, you know, at the 23rd. So I got there in phase 2, I think, in the 4th of April, 4th of August. And, you know, it took me till the 23rd of September to get a house. And basically that entire time, from about a week in till, you know, the 23rd, I was working to get a house. So it does take a bit of time. I had to jump through a lot of loopholes and a lot of things got rejected. I had to keep changing things, doing things, go to HR back and forward. So, you know, it's just one of them things. And eventually I moved out. And, you know, once you get our green discs, you do a proper inspection once at the start of every month on a Tuesday, but then every week they just check the block to make sure, you know, your discs will just go in there, check the block, make sure it's all clean. But they won't do like a full-on inspection. So once you get past your green disc, you only have one proper inspection every month. So, and again, as long as you keep on top of it, it shouldn't be too much of an issue. But for me personally, luckily being in a house, I don't have any inspections. I've got nothing. All my kit is stuffed in a bag to somewhere else. I've obviously got my stuff I'm wearing next week all hanged up, ready to go. You know, I love having a house. Other than the money side, that was a bit of a shocker, because I was told initially, and I did mention this in the video, I think, that my council tax would be sort of integrated. Well, they made it out like it'd be integrated or discounted quite heavily, as well as the rent. So I was like, okay, like this amount, you know, gas, electric, I'm not too sure how much it's going to be, but it wasn't. You know, the council tax is still the same. You know, rent's just shy of 300 quid. Gas, electric is 250 in a minute every month. So, you know, at the end of sort of at the end of it, it's still way better off, I would say, than what Civvy Street is. If I was on Civvy Street, I'd be drowning. But you know, it was a bit of a shock for me, because I've never owned a house, never rented anything. So for me, it was all new. But you know, I weren't really going into it saying it's going to be exactly like this. I was a bit sort of taking everything pinch of salt, because I weren't too sure. You know, fortunately, obviously things come to light, like how much gas and electric is now, you know, rent and other stuff like that. So it wasn't too bad. It was just getting used to it, sort of figuring out how to manage money a bit more. But, you know, we're doing all right. We're getting through it. So, you know, how the sort of course has gone. So obviously I can't discuss any of the specific things we do, because certain parts of it you have to be SC'd. So, you know, but, you know, overall, I enjoyed it. There's, you know, a bit of maths involved. There's a bit of this. There's a bit more complex stuff when it comes, obviously, because I'm CCS, so I'm cyberspace communications, basically. So, obviously, we talk a lot more about communications and how the cyber world is and how the sort of future and certain technology that we have and this, that, and the other. And we're just sort of going through that. And it's been so interesting. And, you know, I mentioned this in my previous videos that I wanted to go in as an AV tech. I don't think I would survive. I don't think I would survive. I know that their maths and their stuff is a bit more complex, I would say, from what I've seen than ours. But again, it's all personal. They might find ours harder than theirs or vice versa, you know. But for me personally, I feel like that would be more difficult for me. And, you know, I've always been involved in computers. I've always built my own and done that stuff. So CCS has been an absolutely great trade. And obviously, going into that cyber realm and communications, that's obviously quite I wouldn't say a niche, but there's so many different areas you can do. That, you know, the main thing for me, I just didn't want, you know, X, Y, and Z, like work on this, that, and the other. I wanted to have the chance to do so many different parts. And, you know, there's a great thing about CCS, there's so many different parts. You could work with the aircraft, you can work on like servers, sometimes you work on servers in the aircraft, you could do all this different stuff. And that's what I wanted, you know, I wanted to experience a bit before I eventually come out, or if I ever come out. I wanted that experience. So in terms of the actual academic side and the learning side, it has been quite good. Depends on instructors, depends on lessons. Obviously, we've heard from courses below us that their instructors have been terrible and they haven't had a good time on the same subject that we did. We had a fantastic time because we had fantastic instructors, really listening. They really go in town. They really make sure that you understand everything. But you just, it's sort of, I don't know what the right word is, but, you get you're picking a card out of the deck randomly sort of thing where, with the instructors, you can't really prepare for it. You just do the best you can and make sure you pass. And yeah, that's been really it for phase 2 as a nutshell. But, the thing is for me about phase 2 that I don't particularly like, and I think most people can somewhat agree with this, it's just the fact that it's still, you're still doing that certain things that, for example, because I live off base, we have a dedicated car park to where the block is, but I don't live in the block anymore. So I was parking in this car park where the staff and some, other people were parking. There was no signs or anything, so I was just parking there because I thought, when I come out of the school, I can just get in a car and drive home. And they got really funny about it, and I had to park in that place, but it makes no difference because a car park's huge. There's so many different spaces. I thought, what's the problem? But because that's just how it has to be, it's just, I think you get to a point where you realise that this is what the sort of RAF is. So that's probably the only thing that I'm not really, it's kind of irritating. Sometimes you make a mistake. So, for example, you can get div chits or diversion chits. So if you finish an exam early or whatever, sometimes they divert you off for the period, so you can go back to block and just chill out to the next one. Or if you're done for the day, you're done for the day. If you don't go up and tell them that, even though they have it, like as in the staff, they have it, they want you to go up there and tell them if they have it and ask them to go, which, they say because technically you're still this, that and the other, which is fine. But yeah, if it's not like they didn't know, they haven't seen it, we could have had a fire, this and that, which is understandable. They had it, they just want us to go into it. So I just don't see, I don't get the big deal in that. But again, they have their job, they have their rules that they have to stand by. So I just take it with a pinch of salt, sort of just get on with it, move out and get out to postings, which brings me on to the big part, which is postings. So I can't obviously tell you guys sort of what bases I put down, obviously for security reasons. Maybe at some point in a year's time when I'm in the base, you guys may be able to figure it out. It's every base is quite unique. But I'll talk about my sort of thought process to pick in a certain base I did. So the only thing I could really say is from the Cosford area, which is Birmingham, it's not close to here. Any of the bases I put is definitely not close to here. And the reason why, and it's definitely far away from home, and there's multiple reasons as to why. One, I wanted to get away from home as far as possible. Okay, even though I come from London, Birmingham is still quite a journey away, 3.5 hours roughly back to my home. It's that's still a good amount of journey, but I wanted to go a bit further. I really wanted to go out there and experience something. So I just looked to the bases, looked to the trades that they do. Does my trade, most of my trade covers all, because they need IT techs there. So it covers most of the bases and the ones I wanted to go to anyway, sort of pre-joining up what sort of bases I thought about that I'm able to go. But I really wanted to go out there, and I've always wanted to work alongside, aircraft. So it obviously covers tons of different bases as well. So, but obviously I have a family. I've got to think about that stuff. And for a long time, me and my partner was going back and forth. There was this one particular base that we both did agree to put down first. She didn't like it; it was too far away from her home. But I really wanted to go there. I've heard it's a fantastic base. Everyone who's been in it, I even had I think one of the instructors, I can't remember now, mentioned that they've heard that it's really good, or they've been up there and it's really good. One of my neighbours, he said that if he could get, because he's retraded to something else in a different base, not in Cosford, he's somewhere else. And, if he could if he could put this certain base down, he would, because he's been up there, he loves it and stuff. So I thought, we don't know what we're getting ourselves into. If we've been told this base is great, we should try it and just give it our shot for our first time. If not, we can do a certain amount of time there, and then we can go. But I'm very excited. I want to get into my job. I want to get my hands dirty. I want to get some experience, get some qualifications. I'm not really someone that likes to sit around and do nothing. So as soon as I know there is this sort of, not myth, I guess you could say, but there's certain trades where you could technically just sit in the office until things happen. But if there's nothing happening, you might be on standby if you're in a deployed team or whatnot. Whatever the case may be. I want to try and help out. I want to do things. Even if even if it means just doing some admin stuff. I don't care. Like, I like to do things. So if I can get some courses done, if there's literally nothing to do to obviously help my qualifications, help me rank, like promote or whatnot, I'll do it, you know, just whatever. And that's my sort of mindset going into it. Now, in regards to sort of obviously moving house, I think the biggest mistake that we made is because I actually live quite a distance away from base, currently where I am. And so it's not directly on base. And obviously driving into work, I don't really have an issue. I've just become sort of second nature now. But I sort of wish I was on base because where I currently am, my family can't get the facilities on base, sadly, for some reason, because they're technically not on base. So I'm going to obviously change that next time, and hopefully whatever posting we get, we can get a house either really close to base, or, you know, on base or close as we can to it. So yeah, so my sort of next thing is sort of like the next 5 years now. And this is sort of to end the video, but this is the funny thing about 5 years. I would like to sit there and be, I would like to be promoted. I like to be this. I like to be that. I like to go here, there, everywhere. The thing is, I've learned in 5 years, you know, if I go back 5 years, I was 21, obviously 2022 if I'm 27 this year. And a lot has changed since I was 21, 22, a hell of a lot in 5 years. So I was sort of thinking about this 5 year thing. Obviously, you get interview techniques, I don't know, what you can do in 5 years, this, that, and the other. But, you know, for me personally, the one thing I want to do is actually put a deposit down on a house. And luckily, there's a few RAF schemes, there's a few housing things that help you get onto the property ladder. But what we've decided to do is get a house with that and then rent it out and then just still stay in the military. And I've always loved the idea of like buying houses, selling them, doing them up. I always like the construction side of it. So I'd like to get into at some point. And obviously, we're talking maybe way more than 5 years at this point. But, you know, just to sort of expand on it and, you know, things like that. And, you know, obviously, if the sort of option to, or the chance to be promoted comes up, obviously I'll definitely do that. That'll be great. Obviously money increases, but obviously with that, if you get promoted, you potentially have to go somewhere else to a complete different base. It's you know, but that's many years down the line. So we'll deal with that when we get to it. So, and you know, overall, I just want to make the most of it. I want to try and sort of get stuck in, like I've already said. And if I get the particular base that I want, there's so much to do in the local area. I might even start doing videos like that just to showcase, not necessarily obviously the base, but the things that you can do up there, and things like that. But that's going to be the end of the video, guys. I hope you have enjoyed it. Again, sort of just throwing everything out there. No real structure to this. But, you know, I wanted to do a sort of video that talks about my own career. And I might talk about when I actually graduate and other things like that. So I hope you guys have enjoyed it. And I'll see you in the next one, whenever it is. Take care. Bye-bye.